Hey, salam alaikum. Alaikum salam. Ujambo rafiki. How are you, my friend? Is your friend in Northwest? Joel Chestnut here, episode number 50. We are getting there, man. I think we are interacting very well. I'm glad you're viewing. I'm glad you're subscribing. I'm glad you're taking your time just to visit with me. I don't mind sharing myself with you, giving out my soul and letting it rapture into your world. Good interactions. I appreciate that. I appreciate you checking it out. I appreciate you just glancing. You're busy. You have a life. I have a life, I hope, when I come to you. I'm just sharing a small part of my life. Athletics. I'm a sporty guy. I like to visit with you from that angle of sports, athletics, running, the world of Riyadh. I want to come up with a podcast name or my YouTube name. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I'll eventually arrive at one. I was thinking of, what is this? What do you think of this one? I just like to throw things around. I know you're watching sometimes and wondering what I'm thinking, and this is what I'm thinking. What about Riyadh? Riyadh zone. What? I don't know. I'm a Riyadh poor. You know, Kenyans have a slang of poor. Everything is poor in Kenya. Poor, 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 poor. P-O-A, poor, poor, poor. I don't know what poor means. And then they have border. They have Bora. Hey, that's Afghanistan, man. Be careful where you go with that one, okay? Anyway, it's glad to see you. I'm enjoying these moments again. It's a privilege. And I hope you see that way too from your perspective, that we have these platforms, we have these visitations. They are friendly, they are humanitarian, they are uplifting. And I've really learned a lot about myself. And I think I'll journey on. Join me as we journey along. So in this episode, I want to get into a Discovery Channel moment, you know, where you try to be an investigative journalist and try to look upstream. You know, there's always an upstream. For those who are river channelers, there's always an upstream. And I like going upstream a little bit because upstream, I can understand my moment here when I look upstream. Downstream is downstream. I don't have an idea what's down the stream, but I can get a sense of what's happening up the stream. And I think for a reason that I've taken a lot of time to explore the women struggles, the women narrative, the women navigating the world that is being structured in a way that is impeding, is kind of, there's a lot of impeding barriers for women. I've always been curious why. I think in the sporting world, there's always curiosity. You hear of title something in NCAA, I think it was title 11, where the gender equity was being introduced in college. I was a college student at one point, and there was that introduction of gender, where they're saying you should accommodate both, there should be scholarship that accommodates both genders, women and men, so to speak. Of course, men were ahead. I don't know how that looks, but men have always been the one writing it. Even when you think of abortion, I don't know why men have a say about that. But anyway, hey, I didn't want to go there. But it's just how men think. They just plunge in. I don't think they even knock. They just plunge in. Or they crash in. I'm not crashing in, okay? I'm just asking your permission to kind of just engage you in this athletic world, and now the sporting world has been a place where women have lagging behind. And I'm talking specifically in a Kenyan economy, the sphere of Kenyans and how that has unfolded over the years. In fact, in one of my episodes, I opened up a place or a space for you to see how far women have come to even have a captain as a woman in Olympics. Captain Faith Kipyegon is something, it's not even over, I don't know how I can overemphasize that. Yet at the same time, when I'm talking of Captain Faith I'm looking at the demise and the brutal killing of Rebecca Cheptegei. I'll always try to look at how these things look in a perspective of liberation, and then there's this resistance. So you have liberated woman in Faith Kipyegon. She's the face of track and field in Kenya. And then you have this silencing of the women liberation in the death of not only Rebecca Cheptegei, who just been brutally killed the last few days. I've been talking and sharing, and you know about, and how this tension has always played out in sports. So that when I look at Kenya as a country, as an economy, I found a very interesting book that looks back. The author is incredible. She took time to look at how sports in Kenya, in particular, with the lens of a woman, and leaving the lens of a man, and seeing the lens of a man, how it has a wider lens, yet the woman has almost no lens at all. Because when you think of Kenyan athletics per se, I mentioned something once in these episodes of 1968, for instance. And I went back to check what happened in 1968 in Mexico Olympics. The only thing I remember as a young kid is Kipchoge Keino. He becomes the blockbuster kid. He's become the face of success, and he's a man, and all that is great. Kenya wins gold in 1500. Is Kip Keino. Kip Keino is a legend. That's a fact. That's not something disputable. I'm not disputing that. But there's this downplay of women participation. There's this gender blackout, as if they never existed, so to speak. But if you look at, if you look closely at 1968 Olympics, we had a representation of women that is not well narrated. And I think, is it intentional? Is it by default because of the patriarch thinking or the patriarch way of looking at everything in sporting world? It could be. It's a bias that is kind of embedded. Is by just natural way of looking at things. And so that when you look at those Olympics in 1968, we had greats. We had great characters there. We had incredible representation in women. They don't win medals, but they represent a country. Their names are, I think Chemabwai was one of them, Chesire, and I think we have Lydia Agnes. Lydia Agnes, there's a very interesting name how those ones work out. So we had 3 women in 1968 Olympics, and they were representation of a gender that even from that beginning, the genesis of a country has always been muted. So that is the beginning, so to speak. Is a very low beginning. The number, we have 3 representatives, and we don't see a lot about how they did. We don't even know what medals, whether they progressed, because there's a muted narrative to it. And so that is how far women were back then. This idea of really getting themselves in a place of, do we even have a face? Do we even have value? Yet, they're here. So that caught my eye and caught my attention, and I was curious why. Because I think one of the things that I've always struggled is we standing here on this side of history, and yet there's a side of history that tells us how far women have come. And I'll just drop something in the middle of all what I'm talking about, which is women have always had a great advocate, whom I call a liberator. I'll call that same person a feminist. The person is recorded in the Holy Book. And I say this because I think people have projected they've not played out this Jesus narrative as a liberator for women. I'm gonna say it right here, that I think if we really look closely at this Nazarene, not was he a liberator. So some people he was savior, to some people he's this great Messiah. But he was a feminist. He was a liberator. He unlocked, he was a person who came to a status that had women in a very low spectrum. And he elevates them. He elevates them in stories after stories. There's a very interesting story that just stuck. It screams feminism. It screams liberator. It screams an advocate, a mitigator for justice and a place for women in society. There's a story recorded in the Gospels where a woman is brought to this mob justice scenario. She's laid bare. I can see it. She's maybe half naked or she's naked. And she's accused of adultery. And there's bloodthirst. People want to stone her to death. That is the verdict according to their religious component and their culture and traditions. She has to die in this setting of being stoned. And people are clamoring, people are ruling there. I think it's an unruly crowd that says, she must die, so to speak, stone her. You know, we've heard of people hang who. So there's this, the verdict is out, she should die. And she's an adulterous woman. Sometimes I ask very interesting questions when I read these stories. Where's the man? Where is the culprit, so to speak? Then was she masturbating? Is that what she's accused of? Okay, let's just have the facts here, okay? Because she cannot be an adulterer alone. There should be a man. But there's this idea of woman. There's this idea that the woman has to take the blame. The woman is the one who is the victim. She's the one who's going to carry the cross, so to speak, in this so-called incident that she was caught in. My sense is that the so-called guy who had an affair with this woman must have been the crowd, shaking in his boots. I have to say that. I'm reading the story in my own way. But you have somebody who takes this woman and liberates her and gives her a sense of dignity and tells her, you'll be fine. You are a woman, you are a human being, you have dignity, and nobody will touch you. You're gonna be what you wanna be. I don't know you that story, but that's a story, but it's a beginning of women that has always been played out. As great as that story is, as this liberator is in place and trying to champion for women liberation, a true feminist, if you wanna say, traditions, culture, religion, status quo, I've always seen women as this, they don't belong. We are still fighting that to this day. Let me go to athletics. I was just giving you a perspective to tell you that women have come a long way. So I've gone to Mexico. I've looked at the three amigos, the three musketeers, the three athletes from Kenya who I've talked about. Chemabwai, Chesire, and Lydia Agnes. They are the face of women in Olympics 1968. Nothing much is said about them until 1972. Another woman rises out of nowhere, Sabrina Chebichi. I'm giving you names that you might not be aware of, but Sabrina Chebichi was a young lady who was born in Trans-Nzoia, those parts of Eldoret. She comes into the scene. She's a blockbuster, so to speak. She just, boom, comes to the scene. There's nothing much said about this woman, but I went and dug into the archives a little bit. And not only is she talented, she's a world record breaker if given an opportunity in Kenyan athletic environment. But as you can see, the beginning of women in sports in 1968 and how it unfolds does not really allow. They are always not being seen as belonging, so to speak. So she comes to the scene, Sabrina Chebichi. I think she was born in 1962, as I say, in Trans-Nzoia. She goes to Mlimani Primary School in Eldoret. I'm just reading some of these things. She hits the scenes running, so to speak. She hits the ground running. I think the first race she does in 1974, I think 72, let me take you back. She ran the first race in 1972 in Kericho. a race which was sponsored by Brook Bond, which is a UK tea company. They're still in town, by the way. I lived in Brook Bond near the factory there, 1975 for a year, going to school down there. When I was a kid, I think I was what, 9, 10? Yeah. Anyway, so Brook Bond is this company that was sponsoring sports back then, and she runs in Kericho Stadium, and she runs at 2:16 for 800 meters. Incredible. Incredible time, incredible runner, incredible athlete, a lot of potential. Sabrina Chebichi. You can check her out. And there she begins. So she has this potential. She is capable. You can see the time, 2:16, can get you a scholarship in US anytime. She could have gone very far. She does go very far in some sense. The only thing the newspaper talk about is something funny, and it's almost, that's how women are always looked at, which is unfortunate, but it's the lens of a man all the time. Because when you think about it, that's the men's world, so to speak. The reporters, the viewers, the spectators who are men. She didn't have the right attires. She didn't have the outfits that we are seeing today. Even back then, she didn't have what you call the kit. You know, the idea of what you wear to run. So the news headlines in the newspapers back then was petticoat, princess, incredible runner, but the focus has gone to what she was wearing. So you see where I'm going with this. Petticoat. Petticoat is kamisi. I think is what women wear inside their dresses, or anything that is light on the outside or is kind of transparent, translucent, I don't know. Then they wear some. It's like my t-shirt, so people don't see what's inside. And the women were back then, and I think they still do that, they wear petticoats, kamisi, they call it. So she races with an outfit that has that look, whether it was by design, that's all she had, but men are obsessed with what she was wearing. And she is, of course, the news headline says, petticoat princess. And apparently when she did that, when the newspapers and the cameras caught that and she was flashed on the newspapers, I think there was a sports minister who offered to give her better kit. Okay, there she goes. She gets better kit. It does not Adidas, by the way, or Nike. So let's not go there. So she gets, I don't know what's better. But there's some, of course, you know, they have to dress her so that she can look formally and whatever that is. Anyway, but the focus is what she was wearing, and she becomes a petticoat princess. Incredible talent. I think she's the first African woman in 1974 in New Zealand. She won the Commonwealth Games, 800 meters and 1500 meters. By that time I'm talking of, she ran, later she improved from 2:16 in 800 meters to 2:02. 2:02 at that time, I can tell you right now, that woman never saw her potential. I'm just letting you know, 2 minutes and 2 seconds in 800 back then. They don't tell us much about our 1500 meters because there's a blackout. Women are not being seen as having what it takes. So they are not flashy. The only thing is flashy is what they are wearing, I guess. Our career stalls quickly because once you see the petticoat, what do you think men are gonna do? I think she gets pregnant, and her career just goes down. There's no more progress. And as you know, she turns into somebody's wife or whatever down the road. The newspaper says, something I was reading about, the newspaper says that, if she had taken care of herself, she had potential to win gold medal in Olympics. So there's a blaming game here again. I'm just giving you this so you can see the spin. And now it has been spinning, and the world that spins the story has no understanding of the potential. They are not even curious of the potential of the woman in this sport. So that's Sabrina Chebichi, her career. I think the other thing that I can see struggling is the period of Montreal being a boycott here in Montreal, Canada Olympics. So 1976, there's no Olympics, and in 1980, there's no Olympics. It reminds me of Henry Rono, who had potential to win a gold medal, but there's a boycott into Olympics back to back. So those careers are pretty much, they don't have that Olympic entry or Olympic experience. So there's another woman that I'll bring up to bear. And I think I'm giving you this background so that you can see that the light on the women is is skewed, is warped. Is not seeing their potential and given that platform and seeing them as being able, so to speak. And I think I'm gonna fast forward a little bit on this story, or this looking back upstream to the year of 80s, I think the 90s, whereby Kenya starts to see an opportunity for men, of course, because back in the 70s, 80s, I think something happens in the athletic world that gates start to open for men. And they start to get what I got, which is scholarships to come to America. Those, in fact, it created what they call athletic pipeline. You know, athletes coming from Kenya, and specifically Kenya distance runners coming to America. Henry Rono, in fact, there's a friend of mine in Eugene, Oregon, who came here in 1975. That was way back then, during this period of 80s, 70s, 80s. I think the scholarship peaked in 1982, where in 1982 we had about 24 men athletes coming to US on what they call the pipeline, where there's this idea, they call it the American connection to Kenyan athletes. Great thing, by the way. It opened a lot of opportunities for many people, including me, when I came in 1991. So I appreciate that. But there's something here you have to see too. Women are lagging. It's not a women opportunity, so to speak. They're always 10 years behind, which is true, because the first women to come to America as athletes on scholarship was in 1984. No, I think it was in the 80s when the charter that was changed that allowed women. We had 3 women who came here. I think Ruth Waithera was one of them. I think she went to University of Arizona. She becomes almost a pioneer. The people will call the pioneers for men were Henry Ronos, and I think there's Julius Sang, there's Robert Ouko, 400-meter guy. But for the women, we have Ruth Waithera. I think we had another one, Chebiator. Yeah, Elder Chebiator. I think she went to University of Wisconsin. And you have these small windows for women. I think they were the first 3 women to come to US. We had the first 3 women Olympics in 68. Now we have in the first pioneers to come to this great land that has given athlete student opportunity to come from Kenya over here. So you see how far women are coming from and how far they are still behind at this window of history. And so that is then Waithera, by the way, Ruth Waithera was a 400-meter runner who ended up representing Kenya in 400 meters in Los Angeles, 1984 Olympics. Then it starts to open more opportunities for women, but they have 10 years behind. 10 years behind for women, because the advocacy for women was not as big as it was for men. So men are ahead, and you start to see success among men and the exposure, because exposure allows you to compete against the best in the world. So that is how, those are the things I'm looking at to understand this idea of a country that could have been really incredible and successful, and how those opportunities for women have been either being open, the idea of breaking the ceiling, which is not just a Kenyan thing, by the way. I think we know this where we live, where we are. But in athletics, that's how it has played out that way. So that the only time you start to see women making this idea of being appreciated, being given respect, so to speak, comes way to the 90s, where you have the Susan Sirma, you have the Sally Borsosio, we have Tekla Rupe winning 10,000 meters in World Championship. The respect now start to come. They become the faces of success, the faces of women. It's because of this idea, this history that we are always looking behind and almost telling the women to catch up. It's not on purpose that they are behind. It's because opportunities and challenges within the framework of the system that seems not to see women as being worthy of this investment that men are getting. So we have these narratives of men and women being seen as unequal. They don't have that equity. And so you have that unfolding history. And so when I last time I talked about this was looking at the Olympics and the package and the medals for Kenya per se. I think in 1984, I'm talking of Ruth Waithera. There's other runners that were there, but they were still far, the numbers are still low. I think 88, I don't see much other than a few runners in women category and that gender category. 92, there's nothing much. Because I'm gonna tell you this, because this is really catchy to me. It's very interesting because I won't repeat myself from my last episode, how when we come to Tokyo Olympics, we had a 50-50 representation of women. And it was one of the best Olympics. Not to forget Brazil, where women and men are pretty much on the same equal terms, and we are seeing progress. We are seeing this embrace of glory, this idea that as a country, we've come a long way. But have we? That's my question too. Because I think one of the challenges I face is looking at this paradigm, looking at these narratives, looking at how the history of Kenya has unfolded. And now we are still wrestling with this this idea that we are equal, we have the same potential. Because if you look at 1968, let's go back, I'll just throw you back again. So you can, I'm trying to give you a big picture, I will not be that detailed. In 1968, Kenya won 1500 meters with Kip Keino beating Jim Ryan of US in 1500 meters in a great race. The next time Kenyans win 1500 meters, because, okay, we boycotted 1976, we boycotted 1980 in Moscow, 1984 we don't win 1500, 1988 is when we win our second gold medal in 1500 with Peter Ono, whom I talked about. And then from 1988, the next time we win 1500 meters is 2000 with Noah Ngeng. And then from 2000, with the next one we won in 1500 is 2008 with Asbel Kiprop. Okay? So a span of almost 4 decades, 11 Olympics, men won the 1500 meters 4 times. It's not that we are lacking in talent. We have men. We've had great 1500 meter runners. They've only given us 4 goals in 1500. It's a very competitive event. I'm not saying it's not. Let me tell you something. From that time of 1968, we've not had a lot of women participate in this same event. Okay? I'm just giving you a taste. Until 2000, we had Nancy Chebet. She wins gold. 2000, okay? Look at the span. I'm giving you almost four decades for men to show us they are good. They gave us 4 gold medals in 1500. The first time we see a legit competitor in 1500 meters is Nancy Chebet in 2000 in Sydney. She gave us gold. Fast forward, 2016, we have the captain, Faith Kipyegon. She gives us gold. She goes to Tokyo, gives us gold. She comes to Paris, she gives us gold. In a very short span, women have surpassed men who've been around and claiming they belong at the top, so to speak. They've given us 4 in 40 years, in that long of a span, compared to women who have almost matched the same number of medals. In the event I'm talking about specifically 1500 meters. That speaks volume. That tells you we have warped idea of potential, equity, and having people being given a chance. That's what I'm trying to say. Women given a chance will deliver. And the resistance to give women a chance has handicapped Kenya and as the world as a whole. That's just I'm very strong on this point. The idea that we've seen women as less than has really impeded growth in other countries as Kenya. I'm just being vocal on this one, because if I talk of 2000 to 2024, in 2024, women have given us 4 gold medals in 1500 meters. Compared to men since 1968 to now, we've had only 4 compared to women this same span. This this idea tells me the concept tells me something. These statistics don't lie. They tell us something. We've resisted to see women as equal to our own peril. And that's my point. And if the liberator that liberated women back then hasn't made a point, I think the sporting world tells us something. It's not about the petticoat princess. And can I say something about that woman, Sabrina Chebichi? If she had a chance to go to the Olympics in 1976 and 1980, with the raw potential this woman had, forget about her petticoat. Forget about anything else we can say about who she was and who she was not. This was a woman who would have broken world records. This is a woman who had potential to bring gold after gold in those Olympics. It's just the fact that she didn't have a chance. I think women are saying, just give us a chance. We are going to live up to our potential. It's so sad. I'm bringing this not in a sad way, but in acknowledging the idea that there's a dormant potential laying just next to us. We just need to nudge them along and tell them, go ahead, do your thing. And I think I'm bringing this because while they are accomplishing a lot, men should not feel threatened by women's accomplishment. We should be celebrating. We should be celebrating when anybody, a woman, a man, or anybody, does something incredible. When they win money for anybody, when they win trophies for anybody, the fact that man or any person is insecure in themselves should not be projected on a woman who is doing what is God-given, which is being an athlete. I'm saying this because Rebecca Cheptegei, Agnes Tirop, Damaris Mutua, these are women who have just, their life has been snuffed because some people are so insecure. Some people are so warped in their psyche that they think they own a person. You don't own anything, including yourself, honestly. So for me, my advocacy and this episode is to keep this conversation, this idea, this narrative of that humanity has a lot of potential. Just let them go, let them fly. Let them fly, let them be egos in their own sphere, and as long as they have the capacity. So I think if the beginning of women has been that far, Captain Faith Kipyegon and the rest of the women success stories should not just make us feel good, we should celebrate that. Well, that's what I just did. Wish you well. I hope, if I turn this thing off. Okay, have a good day, my friend. It's love always. I'll turn it off with my finger. Can't get to it.